very, very privileged to be joined by Sean Doyle, who's been CEO of Aer Lingus for about a year now. And I'm going to start the questions with him because Aer Lingus have been central to Irish tourism for 7 decades. Sean, we were expecting to see 2 or 3 transatlantic routes announced every year. You guys are talking to 12 or 13 airports in North America. Nothing happening next year. Is that supply line from Airbus in Toulouse that caused that slowdown of new routes? And I know you have expansion, but those new routes, is it the supply line from Airbus in Toulouse that caused that, or is there more to it than that?
Yeah, I think that's the key factor for us. Good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to be here to meet so many of our key partners. We still have big ambitions for the North Atlantic. Today we offer about 2.9 million seats out of North America. In the next 5 years, we'd like to grow that to about 4.7. So Niall's ambition to grow, I think, North American spend by about 13% is very much in line with what we plan to do. I'd love to have added more frequency and more routes this summer, but unfortunately I got aircraft at the wrong time. We're taking a very exciting aircraft into Aer Lingus, the A321LR. We had planned to get 4 in for the start of summer. They've only just started coming. And unfortunately, that pipeline of deliveries begins to roll into 2020 as well. So our plan at the minute is to actually build on the network that we've established over the last 5 years. So Seattle will go to Daly, we'll expand into Miami, we'll expand into Orlando, Los Angeles, Washington, and also we'll expand frequency on the newly launched Minneapolis. So we'll still see double-digit growth in terms of seat count, but we won't see a new route next year. It'll be beyond 2020 when we look at
Montreal is 2020, it's gone back to 2021, it's still on course.
It's one of the ones we're evaluating because there's a lot in a corridor of about 8 to 9 hours of flying time with the LR that we can evaluate. So cities of 2 to 3 million, which have a decent footprint of Irish diaspora, and that we think are unique opportunities for Aer Lingus to serve over Dublin, we'll pursue.
All right. What cities are you talking about? I'm not asking you to reveal anything, but where can you reach with that A321 that people who are planning 3-4 years down the line in the room might be thinking of? What cities are in the wish list?
I think if I look at cities we fly to, like Philadelphia and Bradley, Connecticut, you've got catchments of 2 to 3 million. There's a lot in the northeast corridor that fit that bill. I won't give away kind of anything here in terms of the ones that are in scope are not necessarily ones we commit to. But if you look at Cincinnati,
it's BWI there, Pittsburgh there.
BWI, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Cleveland, St. Louis even. They're examples of cities that aren't very well served out of other European gateways that could potentially offer opportunities for Lingus.
Right. I'm going to bring Minister Brendan Griffin in the question that he's asked everywhere he goes. It's about VAT, Brendan. I know you made all that fight for the 9%. And everybody in the room has made their hard job, and you know that more than anyone. Minister Shane Ross says he fought a good fight and lost. You've said at this stage you're trying for everything you can. How can we win that argument? Or is it lost? Is the cause lost? Or what should we as an industry be doing to win back that 9%? Or are we special pleading too much?
No, I think the cause is never lost, and my mantra in politics is never give up. I've been fighting the fight in VAT since my first day in public office. Back in 2009, it was a very, very dark time for Irish tourism. I was one of the people calling for the introduction of a special rate of VAT. My political apprenticeship was working with Jimmy Dean, and back in the mid-2000s, when I was his parliamentary assistant, Jimmy was a very strong advocate for a reduced rate of VAT when he was the spokesperson on art, sport and tourism. And in 2011 when it came in, I think it was a massive boost at a very difficult time, and it was a 2.5-year introduction. I fought for that extension for 5 years successfully. Unfortunately, it wasn't extended in respect of 2019.
But you know who the decision makers are. So how are we going to bring them round?
Well, I think my view on this is that the 9% rate is the proper rate for our economy. I certainly, as a government minister, I have to take collective responsibility for decisions that are made by government. But that does not preclude me from making a case as strongly as possible on various issues. And certainly this would be my view. And I think you just need to keep asking. Now, there is provision there for the reintroduction of the preferred rate of 9% in the event of a significant downturn. that is there, but certainly my view would be that I think we should have that rate regardless in terms of giving enterprises.
And a significant downturn isn't -1 and 0 that Niall had on the.
Well, I think that would be the view at the moment within the Department of Finance. I'm not the Minister for Finance yet, but you know, who knows, there's an election coming. But you know, certainly my view would be that it would be the appropriate rate here. And when you go north of the border, we know that there's a 20% rate. So one of my first engagements after the budget 2019 was in Belfast, and you know, the introduction was that we'd love to have a 13.5% rate of that here. But I know that on top of the other challenges, I mentioned insurance earlier, the Brexit issue, and all of the other, for example, in certain areas because of the loss of our region, you know, particularly in the southwest. 2019 was a very, very challenging year, but certainly in terms of my discussions with the Department of Finance and within government, this is something that I continue to press, and something that I continue to feel would benefit Irish tourism and the overall exchequer as well, if we were to see a return of 9%.
You've been critical. You've seen the speed bumps that tourism has hit over the recent years, or your Confederation has. What have you seen in the plans that you have just been unveiled today that will make life easier for Irish tourism, for your members, and what are the other things that need to be done?
Well, certainly those plans are very welcome, and I think, to be fair to Niall and the team, they've been done very much in consultation with the industry through the CMPG, so we very much fed into those. And obviously, as an industry, we've always been very optimistic, and we always are very positive. It is the default of tourism industry, and let's be honest, we've just come off the back of 5 tremendous years, and we're now, I suppose, hitting speed bumps, as you've said, and we know that there are more clouds on the horizon, and as we know in tourism, a lot of what impacts on us is beyond our control in terms of the export and the international markets. So I think now is the time for consolidation. It's a time for rethink, reset, and I think that's happened this year with a lot of businesses. And you know, certainly those sort of figures that Niall has put up in terms of the next 3 years and what we can expect and aspire to, I suppose again reflect what the industry looked at, you know, only 2 short years ago with our strategy. So we do see that there's still great potential and opportunity for growth, but the speed bumps are there.
One thing that you'd like to see in the plans that isn't there?
One thing that I'd like to see in the plans that are there is greater focus in terms of the impact that Brexit is going to bring. We've seen what Brexit has done this year to continental European markets. We're slightly concerned to see that North American market has slowed the last 4 months. We've seen a decline month on month. That's concerning, because that's a market that has been, you know, really backfilling where we might have had the falls from the other markets. So we'd like to see, I suppose, a great opportunity, and the Minister and the Department, terrific that we got that 6 million extra spend in the run up to Christmas at a really important time when people are planning and booking holidays. But we're really worried about what the end of January is going to bring. So we have a government that have committed an extra 14 million only in the case of a no deal Brexit. Brexit is impacting.
So press that button now is what you're saying.
We need some of that money now. So I would implore that. But Minister, congratulations to you, because we know you fight the battle very hard for us, and rest assured we'll be right beside you all the way for that. So
and Stephen McNally of Dalata, former president of the Irish Hotels Federation, you have those to fill the beds. Yeah. You have that all that stock there. What do you see in the plans that makes your life easier, and what might else be done?
Yeah, I think first of all, Niall mentioned the word collaboration. So I think one wonderful thing we have, and it shows here today that we're people in the room, that people do work together. I think access to information through tourism is so much easier than it would be maybe 5 years ago. So I think people are much better at communicating. I wrote down one thing about that 6 million. What I really would like to see is committing that again now for the first quarter next year. But I think we could, I think we need to commit that 6 million again, rather than wait till we have trouble and then go and look for it. And by the time we get there, it'll just be too late. So I think we need to commit that in order to go forward. If we look at the hotel industry in particular, you could say Dublin has had a kind of a normalised growth. You know, Dublin now is slowed down.
What was this year like for your members?
Yeah, overall, STR, who the bellwether in our industry, would say that RevPARs for the city of Dublin would be down about 2.5% this year. Now, we look around Galway, Cork, and around the regions, we're down between 4 and 5%. So there's no doubt that has had an impact, particularly in the regions.
You were heavily criticised for Dublin prices in particular.
Yeah, I would say that, but again, the RevPAR, being the revenue per available room, has actually come down. So the numbers there now, every room sold, and the numbers come down. But remember, we've had to take in extra supply, so there's a lot of new hotel bedrooms opened up in the city. We've had to deal with the VAT. And still Dublin is the most occupied city in Europe. So thankfully, and this is back to the plans are working. We need to do a lot more of the same, and the digital thing, I think no matter what industry we're all in out here, if we're not minding our digital spend and making sure that we're active and making sure that from our customer point of view, it's easy to book us, we're in trouble anyway. So I think that the targeted money in that sector is actually crucial.
I'm going to bring Niall in a second. I want to go back to Sean because it's so great to have you here. The word sustainability, the Green vote in the European election, the Greens are kingmakers all over Europe. We've seen the flight chain movement, we've seen the Scandinavians introduce aviation taxes, Belgium, Netherlands, France on the way, it looks like. No idea what's happening with the von der Leyen Commission, but it doesn't look good. Aviation is under siege. What is the answer that you guys as an industry are putting up against the flight chain movement, telling people that it's wrong to fly and you're destroying the planet by doing so?
But I think the first thing is that we're probably at the start of this journey, and I'm very proud with International Airlines Group, the group I work for, that we've been very, very proactive at acknowledging climate change and understanding that we need to take responsibility to address the carbon footprint of aviation. So we were the first to engage in carbon offset trading. We've commissioned a plant in the UK which will convert waste headed for landfill into biofuels, because biofuels is an alternative to carbon emitting fossil fuels. We also believe that we need to make very, very strong commitments, and those commitments have been headlined in the last couple of months. We will be net zero by 2050, and we'll have a 20% reduction in net CO2 by 2030. And by 2025, we'll reduce our emissions per kilometre travelled by about 10%. Now, the facts are that aviation does not have at the minute a silver bullet. We can't find a fossil fuel alternative to get a plane off the ground on a scale like, say, automotive can. So we do need to have carbon offset, and we need to have technology that gets more efficient. The A321LR I spoke about is 23% more efficient in terms of carbon output than a 757, and we're committed to that type of technology. So we need a bundle of solutions. The other thing I think we need to realise is Ireland is an Ireland. We're an island here. We have to be mobile. It's part of our economic model. 80% of emissions are on journeys over 1,800 kilometres, where other modes aren't really an alternative. So we do need to, I think, understand the role that aviation plays and have a very balanced approach to this. But we need to also, I think, take responsibility for shaping the future and be very proactive in this space.
Now, we're an island, you either fly here, you sail here, or you swim here. Are you worried about this, the tide of opinion against aviation that we're hearing from the European mainland?
Yeah, it is a concern, all right. I think everyone has to take hold of the sustainable agenda. I should have given a shout out for the sea sector, by the way, earlier on, because they have invested in 10% more capacity on the Irish Sea, both Stena and the Irish ferries.
And the new ship coming in January.
Exactly. But in relation to the air side of things, we've got to keep on making that case. We are an island on the periphery of Europe. There is no land access to where we are, and all the countries that are having this debate, have land access. So I think that's really important. This is 10% of total employment. It's the biggest employer in the whole country. And we have to keep on making that noise. But there is a policy that's we've been working with the minister's officials on, a sustainability policy. I think we're all going to have to embrace that and take ownership of that in the years ahead to demonstrate that we're doing the things we can do, but not to let this flight chain thing take us over.
And Niall, the regional twin, that looks very, very interesting. I know Brendan Griffin is practicing his Italian, that he learned with Italian auntie. How's that going to work on the ground for the people who are in the room here? They have businesses in those regions. How are they going to find that they're now twinned with Belgium or Canada or Italy in Brendan Griffin's case?
We work closely with the industry and their colleagues in Fáilte Ireland, but it is coming up with genuine opportunities. And I used two of them there today. For example, with Canada, we know from the research that we've done in Canada that there is good resonance in Ireland's ancient East. We have that show coming over to broadcast next year. So let's make sure that our team in Canada know everything that's going on the ground in that region, that we put every offer that we can out there to really give a good bang for the buck. Regional air access is also important in this space, so the Cologne to Knock flight. It's really hard, to get a good load factor on some of those services that go to regional airports. So the more we can do by utilising our platforms in CMG and Stuttgart for the Sligo and Mayo trade, for example, can help make the difference on making a route like that sustain itself. As the more critical weakness you have and it's nobody's fault here, is trying to get that regional air access with load factors that are going to make the place succeed, as opposed to make one see in.
And Sean, regionality, everywhere Aer Lingus go, they are asked about what they're doing for Shannon Airport. You've got new routes coming into Shannon. The regional airports of Ireland are still part of your plans in Central Dublin.
Yeah, very much. We have the biggest network offer out of Cork. We have a transatlantic operation out of Shannon, and we've just expanded the European operation. So we see it as being very, very important for Lingus' strategy. I think Niall is right. Seasonality can be a struggle at times. I think it's quite easy to fill planes in peak summer.
Shannon is a seasonal airport. There's no
North Atlantic has seasonal variation, but we do have a year-round JFK service, which works well, and we have a Boston service in summer. But even European inbound traffic, again, working with seasonality is something that I think we all have opportunities to do better on.
And technology is going to help you. So winter routes, which would never be sustainable, with an A330 are now sustainable. Is that true?
Well, the interesting thing about the Shannon routes is basically an A321 that we're now deploying on the North Atlantic. It comes into Shannon in the morning, and then it will fly onto Heathrow and free up an aircraft that was on Heathrow to fly into Barcelona and Paris. So that's a great idea of us using our assets in an innovative way. So the technology is out there, which is different, and I think that gives us opportunities to grow regional presence.
And Ruth, what should be done for the regions that isn't being done?
There's a lot going on in the regions, and we all do our piece. And from an industry perspective, I think everybody here who's in a region, and everybody is in a region in a sense, it's about knowing, about your region and about the experience brand, about engaging with it and working collaboratively to make sure that you elevate that message. I suppose come back to that environmental sustainable piece, which I think is really important, and it's really important for the whole of Ireland, and particularly the regional space. I mean, there is work being done in terms of the department and the policy, but the industry are moving ahead on that as well. I work with ITOA and Avia, and we made it a policy last year that that's a big focus, and we're really putting a push on that in terms of education. It is a journey, as Sean has said. We're all at different stages, and there's exemplars out there that the industry need, to really look up to and learn from. There's a huge amount that we can do as an industry, and we are doing it. Our biggest failing in this industry, we're not talking enough about it amongst ourselves. And from a NITIC perspective, Eoghan has asked all of our industry sectors to come back to us, and we're getting some really, really great and inspiring stuff in terms of sustainability.
So a series of coherent arguments that will help everybody out of them.
Absolutely, and the industry are well capable of doing that themselves. It's about incentivising rather than it's the carrot versus the stick, and we've got to start talking about it more.
Stephen, a lot of members are complaining about Dublin hotels in particular, the coach tour operators saying that the rates that are pushing them out. What's the solution to that? Are we going to solve that problem by building more hotels? We can see stuff happening in the pipeline in Cork, for instance, and a little bit in Dublin, and Galway is under pressure as well. What's the solution to that? Argument is too strong a word, but that mismatch between what people who are bringing tourists into the country are expecting and what hoteliers are delivering.
Yeah, well, I think to be fair, that not a new product coming into Dublin is suitable for tourists. Some is not suitable for that tour business. We've seen now with some of our larger tour operators, like Traycon, for example, who are moving tours back into town because the space has become available. There's no doubt about that. I would say from, say, 3 years ago to this year, there's a huge difference in the availability of space, I think the tour operators as well, the traffic is a big problem, so getting people around the city, through the city, back out of the city. So there's a lot of constituents there, people have to take into consideration. But I certainly see even our own company has a number of hotels outside the city centre, and in the city centre, there's certainly some of the groups moving back in who want to be there. And by the way, it does suit some people not to be there because maybe the next day they have a trip to Cork or to down south or down to and they can get out on the road very quickly, so it does fit well. But I certainly think it's eased considerably from what it would have been 3 years ago.
I've got 2 minutes. Brendan Griffin, Minister, we've been asking questions of you all year. Now is your chance to say to 600 people who work in the tourism industry, what are we doing, what should we be doing to make your job easier to win the arguments and the corridors of power? What would you say to the workers on the coalface of Irish tourism who are all here today?
Well, I think that by doing what you're doing every day and have been doing in some cases for decades every day, you are making my job easier, because the fact that there are now 260,000 people in this economy working in tourism really helps me when I go to my colleagues and I point to the importance of the industry, and the fact that more than 1 in 10 people working in the economy are working in our industry is a huge help. But you know, I've always said that my door is always open. I'm there to work with everybody in the industry, there to listen and there to advocate. And I just like to continue that working relationship. And we don't always get the wins that we want, but certainly I think we've had a lot of very positive wins as well recently, and in particular in terms of the investment that we are seeing in the industry through our agencies and directly then as well through our department, particularly referring to our greenway investment. We're talking about sustainability and regional. Like this year we're going to spend an extra $4.5 million, it's about $27.5 million this year alone on greenways. I want to see an integrated network throughout the country, where you can literally get off the flight and get on your bike and never have to get into a car or a bus or anything.
But that's not going to be one in this room. That's that you're arguing with landowners.
What happens? I think it's the people in this room that advocate for these types of products, for this type of progress, by having the we're all part of one jigsaw, and you can agree with it unless you have a quality product. The people in this room are providing day in day out. The very best greenways in the world. If you don't have the support services, if you don't have great food, great people, the great accommodations we know we have, then those greenways will go empty. So I think it's continuing to work together, put the best foot forward, and certainly I won't be found wanting in terms of my advocation for this industry.
Thank you very much to a great panel. Thank you.